So hello everyone. So these days I heard a lot about COVID-19 from social work and social workers' perspective. And now I will talk about COVID-19 from legal perspective because I am a professor of law. So I will talk about human rights dimension of COVID-19 and about some negative implications of state responses to COVID-19. We all know that when the world faced with COVID-19, in a medical sense, the situation was new, quite new, unknown. However, in a legal sense, the situation was actually quite clear and known. Namely, COVID-19 is an example of an extraordinary, exceptional situation, foreseen and regulated by appropriate international, regional, and national documents, of course, with the national constitutions. These extraordinary situations in generally, and the COVID-19 in particular, usually means that in order to protect public health, in this case, national security in some other cases, states have to struggle to find adequate, appropriate response to this situation, to this pandemic, by introducing some more or less stringent measures with the implications for human rights. And also the crisis situations tend to facilitate concentrations of power in the hands of executive, with the consequences on the check and balances in the country with the consequences of a negative nature if there is no proper parliamentary oversight or judicial control. So an effective institutional command over the pandemic upholding human rights is not easy to achieve. We have all witnessed during this pandemic that this is really hard task for governments. However, in the context of this struggle, it is important to always have in mind that international human rights law provides legal standards to assure that extraordinary situation is not abused or used as the opportunity, as the window to weaken states' obligations to respect human rights and to key legal documents or mechanisms to put states' COVID-19 responses into a legal framework, derogations and limitations. The last one a little bit less stringent, but they suppose to have the existence of a set of criteria needs to be met for limitations to be considered lawful, which are legality, necessity, and proportionality. I suppose that you all heard about them. However, what we have witnessed in the context of fighting COVID-19, in the context of the reactions of state authorities, are unparalleled events in the modern history. Yes, this is the greatest worldwide public health emergency of the century. Yes, it brought public health systems to their knees. Yes, it occurred in the period of the greatest mobility in human history, and that's why it is hard to prevent the spread of the virus. But we all can agree that there is no any justification for a systemic erosion of democratic principles and institutions. Nevertheless, the pandemic has sparked some authoritarian political behavior worldwide. So not only in states that have already been described as disciplinary or tyrannical, but also in illiberal democracies. And this behavior is characterized by the combination of some elements such as the adoption of disproportionate measures with the implications for human rights, highly decentralized decisions making, no existence of effective democratic control, the overall lack of transparency and accountability. So what we have witnessed is unmistakable regression into authoritarianism. And some authors describe this new situation as a constitutional pandemic, and I think that this is really a situation of constitutional pandemic, because when abused, emergency powers pose a great challenge to overreaching the objective of modern constitutionalism to limit state power in order to preserve liberty. Many other measures, however, during the COVID-19 have had negative impact on enjoyments of rights of particular group in society. As we all know, when we talked these days about this, yesterday Ghana had a great presentation about the impact of COVID-19 on elderly person, but some other groups in society also have had really increased impacts on their rights, like people in institutional settings, people with disabilities, children, women also. And the emergency situation also resulted in thinking of many states across the globe to adopt surveillance measures. We know all about these aspects, which included, for example, drone surveillance, facial recognition technologies, contact tracing, quarantine enforcement applications. I suppose that David will talk something more about this surveillance perspective. And often all of these measures have been not just disproportionate to the natures of the situation, then simply unnecessary. For example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the authorities published on the internet names of people who had been instructed to self-isolate due to potential or continued infection. And the Minister of Security ordered the quarantine of migrant centers on the basis that they were the greatest hotspot of the coronavirus in Bosnia, with no proof of that, of course. Also, what happened, maybe for the first time in the legal sense, that states during the COVID-19 were just hoping the answers to COVID-19, they were just copied to measures. And they copied, this is very interesting, the measures of the first country where COVID-19 occurred, so they copied the Chinese solutions. And regression to authoritarianism is particularly seen in Eastern Europe, for example, in Hungary, also in Poland. Maybe I will just emphasize one aspect of Polish transfers with regard to the rights of women. So in Poland, even before the pandemic, Poland was considered as one of the EU countries with a problematic situation concerning respect for the rule of law, human rights, and democracy. And the pandemic was just the perfect moment, actually, for the fulfillment of years-long efforts to achieve some goals, for example, to enact a near total ban of abortion. And I believe that you all heard about the government solution to enact this near total ban of abortion, and about the mass protest in Poland considering that. And in this case, the moment was everything. The moment was perfect. So the situation of emergency, the government banned any kind of assemblies. People couldn't make assemblies in the protest, but they used some innovative tools of protest, such they protested in their phones, on windows, or car windows, or internet, so they protested, but with no effect, because in Poland, as we know, and thanks to the Constitutional Court decision, this eugenic abortion was adopted as constitutional. So there was no effect from this mass protest. And the negative effect of the pandemic on access to abortion have been reported in some other countries, for example, as well in Croatia, because during the pandemic, women were faced with the barriers to the access of abortion. 9 from 29 clinics in Croatia do not perform abortion, even they should do that according to the law, and doctors, for example, use objection to their praxis. So we have existing barriers have been accelerated during the pandemic. However, some other countries they took significant changes, progressive changes in this context, such as UK, France, etc. What I wanted to say is that every crisis situation, such as this one, can result with uses, but also abuses of the emergency powers. And what is important is that the fight against any dangers must go hand in hand with human rights and the rule of law. So that's all about from me. I hope that we will discuss some issues and maybe some experience from new countries a little bit later. Thank you very much.